Welcome back, everybody, to the Awesemo.com NHL DFS strategy show. We've got another four-gamer to talk about, briefly chat about last night. And then we will go through game by game, per usual, and give our favorite hot takes, talk about minutes, who you should avoid, who you should not avoid, and what we're doing with our lineups along the way. I'm joined by Slim Clifford. You guys are used to it by now. Uh, what's up, man?
Oh, not a whole lot. Just that was quite the game last night. I fell asleep after the second period. Apparently I missed some goings on in the third. Um, but Vancouver, at least from the minutes that I watched, looked pretty decent. It was just a good game of or a good day of hockey yesterday. It was just most of the games were exciting. And then I look ahead to today's slate, and the last game on the slate is Dallas Calgary. So I guess we can't be blessed every single day.
Pretty sick late night hammer. Maybe the most boring series of the eight that are going on right now, and probably the including the first round matchups or the qualifying round matchups as well. So pretty dull, but you never know. I thought the Blues game was going to be dull and be like 2-1, and turned out Vancouver scored a handful of goals against them. So anything can happen. Even the lowly Dallas Stars, the worst team for NHL DFS, even they can pop off for 5 goals if things go their
Yeah,
way.
I mean we smack talked them one game in the round robin, or at least I did. And then I think they went out and put up a 2-0 lead, and
Against
they ended up
Vegas, yeah.
scoring 3 goals against Vegas. I mean, I think 3 goals is about as much as you can expect from Dallas, but that they even got there is a good sign, I guess.
Yeah. Um, it wasn't a great night for me. Lineup study is a little bit funky. DK had a bug where you couldn't see the contest. I was trying to look and see who actually ended up winning or who was performing well. But yeah, we'll just skip that for today. And I guess we can just go in and talk about these four games. Looks like it's going to be a pretty good one. Hopefully, no more 5 OT games. If we could keep it to 2 or 3, so we can make sure we do have a 4 game slate this time, that would be preferable here for Columbus and Tampa. 2.3 applied total for the Blue Jackets, 2.9 for the Lightning. Jonas Korpisalo or Andre Vasilevsky. Those are your goalies. I did notice Columbus, and it looks like we've got the lines updated here. Columbus did go with Dubois, Foodie, and Bjorkstrand as their top line for a lot of the game. That's not how they started, if I remember correctly. I think it was Atkinson up there. Bjorkstrand was with Wenberg and Tessier, so I think it was just Atkinson and Bjorkstrand swapped. Another thing looking through on Natural Stat Trick was Tampa 1 was awesome. They generated so many shots, so many quality chances. They should have scored a ton of goals, but they didn't. Korpisalo played amazing. So, with that being said, 5 OT game, playing less than 48 hours later, how are you approaching this one for DFS?
Yeah, it's interesting because, like, I wouldn't be surprised if some of the minutes were cut back. Like, I mean, Jones at 65 and Werenski at 61, and then Hedman at 57 just, 40 hours ago or whatever. Like, those are crazy minutes. I wouldn't be surprised if they're cut back, but that's just a guess. So I'm going to operate that I'm just assuming they're going to operate with their normal time on ice, allocation, because I don't have anything else to go on other than guessing, and I don't like doing that. Um, you mentioned the line changes, and that kind of that kind of sucks for Columbus stacking, because their power play units are all over the place
Yeah.
now. I believe it's one guy on line one guy on line two, and two guys on line three on the power play. I guess you could power play stack, but if you're power play stacking Columbus against Tampa Bay, I'm not sure how often that gets through. So Columbus, I'm not super high on stacking today. Like Torts is just it's just so annoying how often he changes his lineups. Right? It could happen 2 or 3 times a game. He might leave the same lines for 4 games straight, and then it just blows everything up in the first period. There's no telling what he's going to do. So I do have a lot of one-offs from this game. Bjorkstrand is definitely one of my favorite one-offs on the slate. I think he's one of the guys that I was worried about when their playing started. He looked pretty bad in the first couple of games against the Leafs, but I think he's playing better as the playoffs are going on, and I think that's why you're seeing him on the top line, obviously. So I do like Bjorkstrand. Gavrikov is down to 3,100. David Savard's price also came down. So if you're looking for cheaper defensemen on Columbus, Gavrikov is way down into punt range, and he's firmly on that second pair. So I don't mind Gavrikov either. I do believe I have a couple Jenner Foligno mini stacks. The reason being is they're going up against the second line for Tampa Bay. Like I expect the matchups are going to be 1, 2, 3, lines 1, lines 2, lines 3, all the way down, at least until Columbus changes their lines. So I'm expecting Cirelli, Johnson, and Killorn will go up against the Jenner line from Columbus. And I think, that line for Tampa Bay just hasn't looked good. And Cirelli's a really good player, but I think Tyler Johnson's in a little bit over his head. I think he belongs further down the lineup. Alex Killorn is a fine player, but I don't think he's enough, to kind of help carry the offensive load here. So I do have some Jenner Foligno duos. I think that's a matchup they can take advantage of, but I think it's only one lineup out of 20 so far. Like I don't have a lot of them. So for me, it's one-offs, Bjorkstrand. Gavrikov, I don't mind if you need a cheap punt defenseman. The Tampa side, I do have a fair bit. Not a fair bit, I should say. I have 3 out of 20 on Tampa 1, Point Kucherov. And I wouldn't necessarily just flat out exclude Palat here. Like, he's looked pretty good on their wing. Like, obviously, everybody's going to look good with Point Kucherov, but he's not a guy that's just, going to get the puck and then finding their teammates and then just parking himself in front of the net and hoping the puck goes in off of him, like maybe Zach Kassian might in Edmonton or something like that. Like, he is looking to make plays. He's carrying the puck. He's setting up, Braden Point with some pretty glorious chances in the slot. So I don't, you can leave them off if you want to go straight power play stack, but I do like the idea of leaving Platt there. It brings the average cost of the line down, and he's looked really good with them. So that's kind of where I'm going. On Tampa Bay, I will have some one-off Yanni Gourde. I think that line's looked incredible for them so far this postseason. Yanni Gourde's been, maybe their second or third best forward, I think, through these playoffs so far. So I do have some one-off Gourde, but mostly it's going to be about Tampa 1 and some one-off Blue Jackets for me out of this game.
Yeah, Tampa 1 for me as well. I don't see any reason to get off of them based on the last game. I mean, if a couple more chances go their way, they might have scored. They might have scored 2 or 3 goals in regulation, but they had the big game anyways. But they got there late, so I don't know what that's going to do. I mean, bottom line is point scored over 30. I think Kucherov had 25 DK points. People will be hot on them, but I'm kind of the same way. I definitely agree on the matchups as well, and that kind of stinks because the favorite Columbus line for me to stack is Columbus 1. But if I'm playing a bunch of Tampa on the other side, I think there's probably some negative correlation between those two lines. So I don't think you have to avoid Columbus 1 entirely. Right now, I've only got a few of them in my 150. Pretty concerned with how the Jenner line played. In the first game, they kind of got ran over. And then they're in the second line, you've got Wenberg. He actually did take quite a few shots. It felt like
he looked fine.
Yeah,
like, you know what I mean. Don't make me roster.
Can we do it?
Don't make me roster him.
So
I'm not rostering him.
Fair enough. Yeah, I mean, I like to play a lot of 3-3s, so he would, I guess, be included with my Atkinson Texier lineups. That's a really cheap stack, but certainly not going crazy with Wenberg because he attempted like 3 shots in a 5 OT game. That might be his career high in shot attempts. I mean, another thing. Oh, Sergachev, we do have this as well. Sergachev played on the top power play basically the entire time. So I thought they were switching back and forth when I was watching the game. Must not have been watching that close though. Sergachev under 4K. Top power play goes well with Tampa 1 or Tampa 2 if you like that. And then, Coleman hasn't really made a splash. Like, he was good in New Jersey. Hasn't really made a splash since coming to Tampa. But I think I agree with you on the Tampa 3 line as well. So I'm Tampa 1, I'm Tampa 3. At least I'm going to be over the field on that line. And hopefully they can beat up on the Wenberg and Jenner lines again. So I just really like Tampa in this game.
And the one guy I would leave off that line is probably Goodrow. It's just it seems like he's almost like the crasher and banger that goes in to cause a disruption to let Gordon Coleman play around with the puck. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like I think like Goodrow only had two or three shot attempts in that entire game. So it's pretty clear that Gordon, Coleman are stirring the drink offensively on that line.
Yeah, how about Kim Atkinson not having shot on goal?
Like the only player in the game, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, insane. Hockey's random, man. This is tough. DFS is tough. So if you're losing, you need to give yourself a little bit of a sample. So I'm down so far. I don't know about you, but
I haven't checked this morning. I'd be pretty close to even, maybe down a little bit.
Yeah, I've had a pretty miserable. Well, DK saved me the other day, but I've had a pretty miserable last few days. So last week was better than this one, but need that elusive bink. It's tough at the top. A lot of good players, so don't be too discouraged, because I think we're gonna have some big slates on Saturday and Sunday with no NBA. So keep your eye out for that. This is a little warm up. Contests aren't great across the industry, but if you're looking to make some profit, I think Yahoo is a good place to start. I've been playing over there pretty much every day. Got some placeholders in. I don't see the guaranteed, or not the guaranteed overlay, the no management fee. That they're doing that for NBA today. So if you're playing NBA, 25-cent no management fee tournament over there. You can use promo code Awesemo to get up to $30 in Yahoo Sports rewards points, which is cash to play daily fantasy over on Yahoo. So go do that if you're looking to expand your DFS sites, or if you're looking to just make some more money, because nothing better than not paying management fees. Any defensemen you want to mention in this game before we move it on?
Just one thing I want to mention in general. I mean, I know it was a 5 OT game, so maybe that obviously had a lot to do with it. But other than Hedman, the time on ice for the Tampa Bay defensemen were fairly spread out. Now, we saw in the round robin games that McDonough was playing a lot of minutes, so I presume that if they go back to their normal schedule or whatever, then McDonough would be the guy to play a fair amount of minutes. So I do like McDonough in general. I just don't know how the minutes exactly are going to break out. Like, we don't exactly have a template for what to do after a 5 overtime game.
Yeah. You could see Savard play decent minutes and McDonough. So those are two guys that I'm going to a little bit that aren't on the power play, like the obvious guys, Hedman, Sergachev, Jones, Werenski. But yeah, hard to know how these teams are going to play. Like, it's already tough to get a read, especially with Columbus with their lines, but at least we'll know the lines before the game. Now, that doesn't mean that if you swap that they're not going to go right back to something else or put Wenberg between Bjorkstrand and Eric Robinson. Who knows? It could be anything. So Columbus kind of a tilting team to stack in general, but it's a small slate, so I get it if you want to go there. Blackhawks, Vegas Golden Knights, 2.7 implied total for the Hawks, 3.4 for the Knights. This one will start at 5:30 Eastern. So we're getting the main event a little bit early today. This game probably is going to decide the slate one way or the other. Crawford and Leonard, I don't see any changes on either side, except that Nick Roy was with the fourth line last game. Nosek was scratched. Cousins was centering. Stevenson and Tuck, but we got that on the screen. Other than that, I mean, Vegas is going to be popular. I don't think you need our ownership projections to tell you that. I mean, look at them for sure to get the actual numbers, but yeah, they're going to be really popular here. Both their top two lines. Tuck is going to get some ownership as well. Can you disagree with anything here? Is there a way to get different with Vegas?
I mean, you'd have probably some sort of Josh stack and go with somebody further down the lineup. I imagine a lot of the one-offs will be Alex Tuck, so maybe you want to do Chandler Stevenson instead or something like that. I don't think there's going to be, maybe use Braden McNabb or Zach Whitecloud instead of Schmidt or Theodore or something like that. They'll obviously be considerably less owned. But if you're stacking Vegas, I think you're going to have to get creative with your filler stacks, your defensemen, and your goalies. I don't think there's a lot of ways you can get creative with their forwards. They're going to be way too chalky on the slate. It just kind of sucks that we don't have something to go off of, because their last game was obviously ownership inflated because of the canceled Carolina Boston game. Like, I remember looking at the ownerships, like Jonathan Toews was like 30%. He won't be like, I'd be surprised if he's half that on this slate. Looking at that game though, Chicago 2, Doc, Kane, and DeBrincat had way more ice time than Chicago 1, and that's concerning for me. Kirby Doc, if I'm not mistaken, had 4 more minutes at even strength than Jonathan Toews. Like, that's not a small margin. That's a gigantic margin. The thing to note about Kirby Doc too is, even though he's playing all these monster minutes with Patrick Kane, you notice how his price isn't going up on DraftKings?
Yeah, he never shoots.
Because he doesn't shoot. Yeah. He just refuses to shoot the puck. He's a real nice player, but people have to realize he's still a rookie. The player he is now is not the player he was 5 months ago. So he's still kind of getting used to the 15 pounds of muscle or whatever he put on. He's obviously a really good player, but if he doesn't shoot, how much better is he than Paul Stastny or something like that? You know what I mean? Or how much better is he than Alex Wenberg, honestly? So I'm serious.
Disrespect. Wow.
So, but if you're going to play 20 minutes and take 2 shot attempts and land 1 shot, like, how useful is that for $3,500? You're relying on 2 or 3 assists.
You're exactly right. So I would, like, if you're using Fantasy Cruncher, I would just make a rule that if you play Doc, you have to play Kane in the lineup, because I think like, if Kane has a big performance, Doc's probably going to be fine. At least he's not going to hurt you for that price. So that's how I would do it if you're worried about getting him as a one-off.
Yeah. So, but the thing with Kirby Doc is, like I said, he doesn't shoot, and I think it's a terrible matchup because they go 1-2-3 in their matchups, which means they're going to get the Stone and Pacioretty line. So, like, if you're just going to run Doc and Kane into a brick wall for 20 minutes, like, you're not going to get ahead. So I'm wondering if they don't try to switch up a little bit and maybe give that Toews line more ice time, because Toews and Kubalik, that line looked good in the first game. Like, played better than whoever they were matched up against. And I went and looked at the line matching. They were matched up against the Pacioretty and Stone line basically the first half of the game, and they were doing fine against them. So, I was on Chicago 1 in that game, and obviously, like I said, ownership got thrown out of whack because of the canceled Carolina-Boston game on that slate. But I'm going right back to Chicago 1 here. I have a good amount of Toews. I have a good amount of Kubalik. I think they're in the better matchup, which is against Marchessault and Smith. And they played well in game 1, like I said. The ice time sucks. I hope it rebounds. I'm assuming a lot of people are just going to stay off of them because they're going to see the same things we're seeing. And they're going to avoid the ownership, especially after that performance. Like, I think game 1 would have confirmed anybody's fears about a Chicago-Vegas matchup. People were worried about Vegas dominating Chicago, and Chicago only did well because they were playing a bad defensive team in Edmonton, et cetera, et cetera. That game 1 would have confirmed it, right? They got outshot by like 15 shots or something like that. Like, other than the top line, the rest of the lineup got throttled. So I think I hope we see some depressed ownership. So I'm going back onto the Chicago 1. Kubalik and Toews I'm going to be focusing on, but I will have some Saad in there, obviously. I might mix it up with some PP stacks, instead of Saad, add in Kane, or instead of Saad, add in Doc or something like that. But I am going to be focusing on Chicago 1 on that side. I am going to have a good amount of Vegas 2, Vegas power play, but I think I'm probably going to end up right around the field. Like, I'm not going to go haywire on them. I am going to have a good amount of Corey Crawford as well, because I think, it seems like he's a pretty good lock to face at least 30 shots every single game. It's just a matter of whether he allows 5 goals or 1 goal. So I'm going to have a good amount of Crawford, and all the defensemen for Chicago are getting cheaper as well. I noticed Connor Murphy's under 4K. I think Duncan Keith's just over 4,100. So it's getting easier to stack the Blackhawks defensemen in for relatively cheap. So I'm going to have Keith in my Blackhawks power play stacks, and I'll probably have someone like Murphy where I'm just stacking the even strength line.
Yeah, man, this is like nothing about the first game, like watching some of it and then looking at the stats and how the lines matched up is really changing my opinion about how to treat it. So similar slate, like, we're not going to hopefully get a game postponed here. So I agree. You can't really take anything from those ownership projections because I basically swapped all of my Boston to Vegas, and I'm sure a bunch of people did as well. So look, Vegas is going to be chalky. I don't think it's going to be chalky enough for me to get off of them right now with the ownership projections on the site, with the projections, all that. Vegas, the Carlson line is my number one stack by a good margin. Vegas 2, the Stastny line, is about third or fourth for me, somewhere in that range. And then I've got power play stacks. I think this is maybe the one team where you could full power play stack the second power play if you wanted to do that. They're usually pretty even. The one downside is they don't have Shea Theodore, but Schmidt and Martinez are still solid players. Like, not guys you need to avoid, or you could 4-man it and just take one of Schmidt or Martinez. But yeah, and then the Tays line, they just were better in the first game. They didn't play as many minutes, and maybe they won't be awesome, but if they can generate as many chances as they did last game and go up against the Stastny line, I like that way better than having to go up against Stone and Pacioretty. So I'm right there with you. I think I'm going to end up just bumping down the Doc Kane to Brinkat line. I play like basically every top 6 line with 150 and just the way that I play. But looking at the ownership discrepancy between the Tays and the Doc line, I think it's a mistake. I think I'm going to have more Tays than Kane line. So feeling pretty good about that. I'm just going right into the chalk again with Vegas. I think you can, again, Josh stack. You can play the first line with the third line. You can play the second line with the third line if you just wanted to onslaught and hope for a couple full line goals. There's ways to attack it. You're not going to be super different because there's only 4 games. But just playing like one of Schmidt and or Martinez instead of Theodore is a way to differentiate that. Might put you ahead if one of those guys has a big performance because they're certainly capable of it.
Or just double defenseman with Schmidt and Martinez if you want to. I mean, I'm not mistaken, somebody shared with me this morning the winner of the $15 last night had Pietrangelo and Parayko.
Yeah, and they don't even skate together.
They're not even on the same even strength pairing, and the team only scored 2 goals.
Yeah.
So
those peripheral defensemen, Vegas has a few of them, and then Chicago, Connor Murphy again. I feel like I just like the Connor Murphy fan club, but he's a guy that always grades up well for us, and his price is dropping, and the block shots are going to be there. Him and DeHaan as well. 3,500 for Calvin DeHaan. Like, Vegas, they didn't really go off in the first game. The Stastny line was very good in terms of DK points, but I don't know. This could get ugly pretty quick, I think, if Crawford's not on his A game here. But Chicago can score goals, so give me some of the Tays line as well. I think we're good on this game. Anything else you want to mention?
No, that's about it for me. I also don't know how much Leonard I'm going to get to.
So low upside.
Yeah, and at that price range, like we're going to get to Carolina, Boston next. I think I'd probably just take one of the Boston goalies.
Yeah, let's see where I'm at on Leonard right now. Our ownership projection is wrong on Leonard. We've got him at like 1%. If he's at 1%, I would have like 15. And I think he's going to be closer to like 15% ownership. So maybe we'll get another run of that and get that updated. But yeah, it's just going to be like, I love correlating goalie, but you're kind of relying on a shutout and like 25 saves. I don't know that he's going to get to 30 when Vegas is on home ice and gets to choose matchups here. They're just such a good possession team that it's hard to play an $8,300 goalie with any sort of regularity here.
Yep.
Carolina and Boston, 2.6 implied total, 2.8 for the Bruins. Again, 2.6 for the Hurricanes, I should say. Mrazek, Tuukka Rask. These two teams played yesterday. They were supposed to play 2 days ago, so very quick turnaround. This one's going to lock at 8 Eastern. What did you notice in the first game that happened just under 24 hours ago? Double OT. Boston pulled out the win. But I think you got some interesting thoughts on kind of the Boston side here.
Well, both sides actually.
Okay.
One thing is Jake Gardner played 13 minutes in a double overtime game. I don't even know how you roster him anymore.
Dude,
What is he going
everybody
to play?
hates Gardner. I don't know
Well,
why.
he's
He's not
just
that bad for
he didn't
DFS.
play well this year. I think it's his back. I think he still has back problems because those back
Mm,
problems cropped up at the end of the last season, 2018, 2019. I just think those haven't gotten better.
fair enough.
And
I mean, I just know like the Leafs media is always they were always
yeah,
super hard on him.
oh yeah, they were always on him, but he was always maligned for that for no reason. I just think it's a back problem that's cropping up. But
Sure.
like, if he's playing 13 minutes, I don't care if he's on one of the power play units. That's pretty close to not rosterable, even at I don't know what he is, 2,900,
26.
2,800,
26.
2,600. So, um, not sure if I'm going to be getting to a whole lot of Gardner today. Jacob Slavin had over 37 minutes in that game, and nobody else on the team had more than 31, if I'm not mistaken. So we talked to, obviously we didn't get to use him because the game was canceled, but we talked about him on the last day that we had this game. That Slavin is a guy to turn to because people will go to Hamilton, but Slavin's a really good offensive player. He's good at carrying the puck. He's good in transition. He likes to shoot. He blocks shots. He's that combo meal threat we talk about for the shot block and shot on goal bonus. Um, I like using Slavin kind of like to get different. I don't think you need to because we have Carolina's ownership coming in pretty low on this slate. So I don't think, it's not like a case where you need to go from a 19% Hamilton to a 9% Slavin or something like that. They probably should both be pretty low. The other thing is, I thought the Trocheck line looked good for Carolina. Trocheck, Natchez, and Niederreiter. I know, like Niederreiter's kind of looked lost all season, which is probably one reason why he's down on the third line. But Trocheck and Natchez, I thought looked pretty good. And Natchez, or not Natchez, Trocheck was on the top power play unit with Justin Williams out of the lineup. Now, we don't know. I didn't see if Justin Williams is going to come back. I imagine we're not going to get anything until warm-ups. But
Brendan
Justin,
Moore said they've still got a bunch of guys banged up, and he said they're true game time decisions. So,
so
yeah. Not
there
great.
we go. We're going to get the JT Miller thing from last night all over again. So whether Justin Williams comes back has a big effect on Trocheck's value. Like, I like Trocheck in general. I have him as a targeted one-off today, regardless of whether he's on the power play unit or not, because I think once you get to Boston's third and fourth lines, Trocheck and company can probably do some damage. So as long as they don't get matched up against the first and second line too much, which they shouldn't, I think they can have a good game. So Trocheck and Natchez are one of those filler combinations that I like. Trocheck is a one-off for me, especially if Justin Williams is not in the lineup. We're going to have to see when lineups are released. Charlie McAvoy played a ton of minutes in that game. He's another guy we brought up. But his price is right next to Torrey Krug's now, which it makes it hard to justify playing McAvoy then at that price, because the reason for generally playing McAvoy was to differentiate from Krug, who was often popular with Boston one stacks. The problem with Boston one stacks typically had been the first line was 21 or 22 grand, and Krug was between 5 and 6K. He's under 5 grand now. Like, McAvoy's only a couple hundred cheaper on DraftKings. So I could see a lot more people going to Krug, which kind of makes McAvoy, I guess, in a way more appealing, because he carries less ownership because the prices are so close together. People would just take the power play one defenseman automatically.
I think that's what's going to happen.
Yeah. So I mean, that would make more sense, I guess. So McAvoy's still in play for me just because of the ice time. But the one thing that we talked about briefly before the show that is really important is they really leaned on their second line in that game. Like, if you look at the even strength ice time, Krejci and DeBrusk both had more even strength minutes than David Pastrnak did. All three players on the second line had more even strength minutes than all three players on the first line. I'm not sure why that is. Like, Bergeron and Marchand both play power play and penalty kill, so obviously you do need to give them a rest. But the fact that the second line played so much at even strength tells me maybe there's something in a matchup, or there's something on the defense that Boston likes, or maybe they just like the way Kasha, Krejci, and DeBrusk played. or were playing on that particular day. Whatever it is, they come in pretty cheap. The entire line stacks for 11,500 on DraftKings. That's a great filler stack if you're going super expensive Vegas or super expensive Tampa or something like that. So I do like the Boston second line quite a bit here today. It's a risk. It's a risk that the ice time that we saw where they're close and surpassing the first line in the first game is going to persist. If it doesn't, I'm willing to eat the loss on that because I think it's worth taking the risk at lower ownership. And what might not be a bad matchup, if Justin Williams is out, that stall line isn't as formidable, I don't think, in any matchups they might get. So I'm going to have some Boston too. I do have a fair bit of Carolina 1. And the reason I have a fair bit of Carolina 1 is straight ownership. We have them coming in around 2-3%. And to me, I don't care about the matchup. Any time that line is matched up against any team and they're going to come in at that ownership level, I'm going to stack them. I honestly don't care about the matchup. I don't care where they're playing or how they're playing or what the situation is. It's all about ownership. So I think right now I'm sitting at 20% Carolina 1. I might knock that down a little bit, maybe just to 10 or 15% because I don't think you really need a ton. But I am going to get Carolina 1 in, not because I think there's some sneaky matchup here or something like that. It's just that their ownership is going to be way too low for as talented as those guys are.
Yeah, I think the Boston side's kind of easier to parse through here. You got Boston 1. They would have gotten there had the game taken place on the.
Can we not talk about that?
Yeah, so they would have had 2 full line goals, 1 in OT. So I don't even know if they would have been in the winning lineup necessarily. I don't know if the pricing would have worked, but they would have performed pretty well, or they did perform well in game 1. That being said, they were matched up against the Aho line quite a bit, which you would expect. They didn't do that great of a job of shutting them down. I think the shots while those 2 lines were on the ice against each other, I think it was 13 to 13 shot attempts. And Boston isn't going to give up a lot of quality chances, but Carolina 1 can finish them if they do slip a little bit. So I saw the ownership as well. I'm at least open to playing Carolina 1 whenever they're going to be that low owned on whatever size slate. On a 4-game slate, they might get bumped up a little bit, but I'm pretty sure we had them projected at almost double digits on the slate 2 days ago. And then we didn't get to see the ownership because everybody swapped off. But it's crazy. And they held their own in game 1. So that's good to know. They're younger. So maybe the quick turnaround, I don't know. I'm kind of talking myself into some Carolina 1 here. I just can't look at that ownership and just turn away because of Boston 1. So
I mean, that's the thing, right? And it's in our top stacks tool. Like we have a little leverage column that shows you what we think their chances are of finishing as one of the top 2 stacks on the slate and what the projected ownership is going to be. And, the difference gives you the leverage that you have over the field. And even if you think Carolina is going to come in higher than what we have, like let's say you think they come in somewhere closer to 8 to 10%, again, you don't need a lot of them. You don't have to go out. Like Vegas 2 could be closer to 30%. Like if you want to be in the field with Vegas 2, probably 1 out of 3 of your lineups need to have Vegas in them. With Carolina 1, that's not the case at all. Like you don't need a lot of them. I'm pretty sure if you get 10% Carolina 1, like full stack, you're going to be ahead of the field. So you don't need a lot here. And like Jake said, we're trying to talk ourselves and give ourselves a bunch of data points about why this is a good play, but it really does come down to ownership.
Yeah, I think in that 10% range is probably where I'm going to end up on them. So I'm not all in on Carolina 1. I don't think you should be. It's not a great matchup still, but their price is right.
It's a bad matchup.
They're an awesome line. So maybe they roll the Krejci line against them a couple times because they're in love with the Krejci line now, or maybe they roll Coyle and Richie and Bjork against them a few times, and they get a cheap one against the non-Bergeron lines, and then you still got the power play. I mean, they scored 3 goals yesterday. I think they're going to be able to score goals in this series. So, yeah, it was a little bit too low on them, I think, for game 1, and maybe I'm a little bit too high on them for game 2, but that's where we're at. Dougie and Slavin I like as one-offs. you could obviously play Dougie with Carolina 1 if you wanted to go with the onslaught there. And then the ownership difference between Krug and McAvoy is pretty wide. So I like the idea of playing McAvoy with some of my Boston 1 lineups if it turns out that I need a defenseman in that range. Other than that, we're not playing Jake Gardner. And
I mean, it's worth talking about the goaltending, right? Because
Sure.
it's a back-to-back.
Yeah.
In the first round, in the play-ins, Carolina had a back-to-back with the Rangers, and they went to James Reimer in the second game. So I suspect Reimer could start this one, and I wouldn't be surprised if Yaroslav Halak starts this game either. He started the first game of the round robin for them before Rask started the next two, and they don't use him interchangeably. They obviously favor Rask, but I don't think there's just some giant chasm like Corey Crawford and Malcolm Subban where it's, if this goalie's hurt, we're toast. I think they look at it as they're pretty close to even. They're up a game already. Maybe they want to give Rask some rest. So
yeah, it was double OT. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So I feel pretty confident saying that it's going to be Reimer for Carolina, and I'm assuming it's going to be Halak for Boston. If people just want to go with Rask, I'm not going to say you're an idiot. It's just guessing on my part.
They actually just confirmed now, and some of the people in chat are saying it's going to be Rask for game 2.
Okay, good to know.
They can always change their minds, but yeah. Rask has a broken finger and has been skipping practices. Oh man, you're talking me into like 12% Carolina 1 now. Look out.
Just the absolute worst thing to hear at this point in time.
All right, let's go to actually, let's quick talk about what we got for free today, and then we'll go to the last game. First of all, we got a bunch of shows coming up. MMA strategy is going to be way later tonight. We've got NBA Live Before Lock, Laffy, and Josh. This morning, we had the NBA strategy show, MLB strategy show. You can find those on YouTube, on our channel. Obviously, like, subscribe, do all that stuff. That helps us out a ton. But if you want to listen to them on podcasts, I'll be uploading those onto podcasts. We've got the main feed, Awesemo Daily Fantasy, on Apple Podcasts. And then we've also got sport-specific feeds if you just want to get NBA shows, for example. So they'll be up on both of those. If you want to subscribe to our sports-specific channels, feel free to do so. Also, we do have this lineup builder is going to be free for today. So I will post this in chat for NHL. And then, let me see. Got to refresh my memory on what we have for NBA. Thursday, we have the ownership rankings for NBA. MLB Top Stacks tool as well. So that's my favorite tool for MLB. It's my favorite tool for pretty much every sport. We've talked about it for NHL. But it is a great way to identify over-owned and under-owned stacks. So take advantage of that if you're playing any of these sports today. Let's get to the late night hammer of all, the hammer of all hammers right here. 2.6 implied total for the Flames. 2.6 as well for the Stars. Vegas is saying this is pretty much a pick 'em. Cam Talbot and Anton Khudobin. Maybe Ben Bishop. I know Bishop is available to start here. I think it's going to be Bishop just because Dallas lost and didn't look very good. But it sounds like he's going to be available for this one. He's who I have in the projections. I'll update if we need to. Did game 1 change your opinion of anything? And then where are your exposures in this game, if any?
Yeah. No, game 1 didn't change anything for me. It feels like that game went pretty much according to plan. Like, I don't think we're expecting a lot more than 3-2 games out of this. Like, if we ever get a 7-5 game out of this series, I might just have to quit playing NHL DFS. I don't know what to do with Dallas because I don't like any of their lines. I mean, you could argue Tyler Seguin's on their 4th line now.
Yep.
Because they use that Faxa-Como line as a shutdown line. I wouldn't say Pavelski and Gurianov. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I honestly think you can make an argument that Tyler Seguin is on their 4th line now. Like, he won't get 4th line minutes, but, like, I don't care if he's playing. Like, I don't care if he's playing with Corey Perry or whomever. Like, I don't want anything to do with him. And you look at the rest of the lineup, how long are these lines going to stay together? They've been changing them almost every game, every 2 games, and what sucks about that is that they went through their entire training camp pretty much with set lines. Like they were running Mark Pavelski and Radulov. They were running Ben and Sagan and Hintz, if I'm not mistaken. Like the Faxacom, like they had lines they were running for 2 weeks, and then they change everything once they get to the games. I'm like I see myself with some Dallas one off. I made lineups right before we came on. I ended up with like 15% one off Heiskanen, a couple one off Pavelskis. That's about it. Like I just don't even know where you would begin to stack on this team, other than if you want to stack the power play or something like that. So for me, I'm gonna be treating Dallas kind of like I'm treating Columbus. It's gonna be one offs, maybe some cheaper defensemen. Um, what's interesting to note, and the reason I picked out Pavelski is that I subscribe to a matchup sheet by a Dauber writer named Adam Daly Fry, and he has the Pavelski Guryanov Janmark line going up against Calgary's third line of Dubé, Lucic, and Sam Bennett. Sam Bennett taking over on that second line for Derek Ryan is a pretty big downgrade, I think, at least defensively. I think it's a big downgrade defensively for that line, and I think it might help them score some goals, but it certainly won't help them prevent any. And I think like the Faxa-Como line is going to be matched up with Monahan and them, so there's nothing you can do there about that matchup. Like you're not going to go out and roster Dallas's, Como Faxa line for 25% or something like that. That's just ridiculous. So the best matchup you're probably going to get is against that Bennett line, and that's Pavelski. So I do have a bit of one-off Pavelski, but for me, it's going to be going back to that Calgary 2 Backlund, Kachuk, Mangiapane. They've looked good all through the round robin, or all through the play-in. They look good in game one. They look good for most of the season once Mangiapane got to that line. So I'm going back to that well. The thing to note about Calgary, and I'm going to be curious if this has any effect on ownership going forward. In the first game, they pretty much evenly distributed even strength time on ice between the first and third lines. I think there's only like 2 minutes separating Dylan Dubé from Johnny Gaudreau, which is just crazy when you think about the quality of the player. So that's why I'm not super high on Calgary. One is like, if they're not going to play 19, 20 minutes, if they're going to play 16, 17 minutes, I'm not sure I want to pay up for. I'm not going to say they're going to be a chalky line, but they are in that mid-price range where they can help fit in some expensive defensemen, et cetera, et cetera. We do have them in double digits on our ownership stacks, I believe. So, if that line's going to be matched up going into a tough matchup, because they might have to eat that matchup line from Dallas, and they're only going to play 16 or 17 minutes, maybe like 30 seconds or a minute more than the second line. I'd rather just take the second line. That might be a better even strength line as it is, and it's certainly going to be in a better matchup. So Heiskanen and Pavelski one-offs for me on Dallas. I'm going in with Calgary 2. I do have, I think, one share of Calgary 3, or at least one off Dubé. I'm going to go back to that well. But that's about it. That's where I'm going to go for the forwards. On the blue line, I want to note Jamie Oleksiak played a ton of minutes in their first game. I think he played 24, 25 minutes. He had like 4 more minutes of ice time than Klingberg did. Oleksiak's not going to go out and score, 2 goals and an assist or something like that, but he is good for some peripherals. If he's playing 24, 25 minutes, he's going to have to be. So Oleksiak is one of the defensemen I'm going to be taking from Dallas.
Yeah, this is there's a clear spot that I like to attack here, and that's Calgary 2. Backlund, Kachuk, Mangiapane played pretty well first game. Won't have to go up against the Faxa line, according to what you said, and they just like that Faxa line against opposing top competition, and they did a good job against Calgary 1. So
that's why I don't like that Calgary 1.
Yeah.
Like, if you're going to tell me a first line's playing against a fourth line all game, what looks like Dallas' fourth line, I'd say, yeah, I'm all in. But this fourth line, I'm not.
No, they're solid. So I'm really going to limit the amount of like Calgary 1 stacks I get. They're cheap.
I
but
have none.
okay.
I do less lineups than you. I only do 20. You do 150, but I zero Calgary one.
Yeah. So I think I talked about it yesterday with a couple lines that were in tough matchups. I think maybe depending on your play style, for me, it's a little bit aggressive to just cross off a top line here with only 8 teams. And they are like some of their best point producers, so there's a chance they could get there. Homer Cleese mentions the power play. Um, the penalty kill, sorry, for Dallas all season wasn't good. It hasn't been very good so far. They're taking, I think, 3.5 to 4 times shorthanded per game. These lines are garbage, so things could go Calgary one's way. I just really prefer Calgary two as a full stack. Mangiapane, again, it's going to get left off of a lot of stacks. I'm going to try to not leave him off. And you can play Geo or Gustafson, I think, with Calgary too. Dallas is I guess interesting. Not really, but in that I think this
They're
being the last
interesting in the way like a 17 car crash on the highway is interesting.
exactly. So that like Sagan had a legit 0 last game. He's playing with Perry and Dickinson. Allegedly, he's playing with those guys. They did skate Ben Radulov and Sagan together a little bit last game. It was about 3 minutes, I want to say. So that's a few shifts. I think there's a decent chance they go back to that to try to generate some offense.
mean, they like, they're down a game. If they go down 2-0 or something in this, they're gonna have to. They can't just keep going status quo.
Yeah.
I mean,
So that's a pretty cheap stack. That's probably the one I'm just gonna go with, and then I'm just gonna assume it's Pavelski, Janmark, and I don't even know. Maybe Gurianov, maybe Hintz, but I think you just have to guess on the Dallas lines and then react. So
that's why I said it. Like, I don't have any Dallas stacks. If I did, it would probably be power play, just because I think we're gonna see a lot of broken line combinations today, other than that shutdown line.
yeah. So what I'm probably gonna do is just play play one line from Dallas, and then swap if need be. I could always swap some exposure to Calgary one if I feel like I'm in a good spot, or if the lines at pregame for Dallas are this trash that we see on the screen. So either play one-offs, play two-mans, maybe like I don't even know the two-mans you would play, because who knows if Hintz is going to be with Ben and Radulov. They're not on the power play together, so you're just going to play two uncorrelated forwards. Dallas stinks, as you can.
I can't wait till they're out of the playoffs. Oh
They're
my
so
God,
bad.
come on,
They're
Calgary.
so bad. So Bishop's the thing to keep an eye on here. I think it's going to be him. I was going to check. Do you know Bishop's price off the top of your head? That's the only thing.
I think he was 7,500.
Okay, so if they're the exact same price, then you guys can put in whoever you want.
He's 70. He's 77. Hudobin's 7,500.
So I would suggest put in Bishop and then swap. Yeah. Set an alarm at what would be 10 p.m. Eastern, so you don't forget. Swap him on all sites, and then you're covered. The extra $200 isn't that big of a deal in NHL DFS. So small price to pay for being able to leave your options open and play a goalie that's actually playing. What about D-men here? I mentioned a couple guys on Calgary. Anyone else you want to point out besides Oleksiak? Yeah. Like, what are you doing with Klingberg and Heiskanen? Are those one-off options for you at all?
Yeah, I'm not rostering Klingberg because I don't have any Dallas. Like, I'd only put him in power play stacks or line one stacks that I had, and I have none of those, so I have no Klingberg. Heiskanen, I do have a few shares because, like we saw, was it not game one, but their final game of the round robin? Like, they scored 3 goals from 3 different lines, and he was in on all 3 of them. It's because he just plays so many minutes, and he's such a puck mover that he's going to get involved. So Heiskanen is definitely a guy that I have out of this game. One time on ice issue on the Calgary side was Eric Gustafson. If I'm not mistaken, he played 13 minutes at even strength in their last game.
Yeah.
I think he played like 16 minutes total. That's not going to do it. So I have concerns about rostering Gustafson as a one-off. I think he's more into the territory of Calgary one or power play stacks. Then you put him in. Like, I don't know if I'd play Gustafson as a one-off because playing 13 minutes with your main exposure coming from the power play. I don't know how he has a great game without the power play having a great game.
Yep, I agree with that on all fronts. I like Heiskanen as the one-off play on Dallas. He's, I'll probably mix in some Alexiak. He's one of the few guys you can play that's under 3K that you feel safe about getting 20 minutes. And then one more thing. Can Matthew Tkachuk not fight again? What is he doing? In a playoff game? Right off the bat? This guy, chill, dude. God.
Like that got me mad. Yeah, who was Tom Wilson? Oh, Tom Wilson and Anders Lee yesterday after Lee put him out. It's like I get it. You want some blood, but listen, man, I need fantasy points.
Like 5 minutes doesn't seem like a lot, but then you can't get in a groove. Like, it's just annoying. I don't know. Stop fighting. Your top power play. You're 5,500. He should know. For DFS fans,
leave it to Lucic and Dubé on the third line.
Exactly. Let the scrubs fight. Although I better watch my mouth on Lucic. I think he's on a 5-game point streak here. So I don't know. Maybe he's back to being okay. Calgary 3, pretty cheap here.
I told you I do have some more. I one off Dubé again here today. Nothing crazy, just a couple, but I'm gonna have one off Dubé.
Yeah, I mean, I'll probably have to end up swapping unless I just have the absolute nuts and I have enough Calgary 2 and Calgary 1, the few lineups that I have. Like I could see myself playing some or having some Dallas 1. They just go nuclear with their lines, and then I'm just hitting a Hail Mary or trying to connect on a Hail Mary here with Lucic, Bennett, and Dubé, like a couple stacks that I just swap because I'm fed up with Dallas lines. So we'll see. If there's a late night hammer here, I just hope it's Calgary 2 and not Dallas.
Yeah, or Calgary 1 for our buddy Homer Cleese.
There you go. I think that's going to do it. Got any other last words? I'll mention Yahoo really quick. Promo code Awesemo is how you can get up to $30 in Yahoo Sports Rewards points. They're running some NHL contests. I'm in. Come take my money. Use those YSRPs if you like. No management fee tournaments. As I've got MLB up there. I've been playing some MLB over there as well. And then I played PGA. I'm not good at PGA, but I think I got a way better chance of winning over on Yahoo. Softer competition, less pros. You guys know the deal. And then they're doing some management fee free tournaments as well for PGA. So get in those. You got to get in those really early in the day because they fill, because they're the best tournaments on the market that you're going to find. Shout out to Yahoo. Thanks for them for sponsoring the show. They help us do this for free. Anything else?
Nope, that's about it for me.
All right. Good luck, everybody. We will see you guys soon.
Good luck, everyone.